Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. So this is level 4, and we're going to be talking about calculating pH. So this is where you get to use your calculator, specifically a scientific calculator, to do this. As a quick recap, let's look at the pH scale again. So remember that acids are on the left with values ranging from 0 all the way to 7. And then bases are values running past 7. So from 7 all the way to 14. So remember that when you add acid to water, you get these hydrogen ions. When you add a base to water, you get something called hydroxide ions. You might remember this from our chemical reactions unit when we start talking about polyatomic ions. These are polyatomic ions, and they don't split apart. They stay oxygen and hydrogen. Now, the interesting thing you see here is you might be wondering, well, okay, what would happen if you added an acid to a base? Well, if we look here, we have hydrogens, and here we have hydroxides. If you combine those, what do you think you would get? We'll answer that question in a second. All right, so when we measure pH, pH stands for the power of hydrogen, or the potential of hydrogen. So we're focused on the concentration of hydrogen ions, just like we saw in the previous slide with the hydrogens in solution. The higher the concentration, right, the more that there are, the lower the pH is, right? The more acidic it will be, the more hydrogen you have. And it's kind of a continuum. If you have high hydrogen, you have low hydroxide. If you have low hydrogen, you have high hydroxide. And so that's why right in the middle at pH of 7, it's neutralized. So let's go back to that question. What do you think you get when you add hydrogen and hydroxide? Well, you actually get water. You get H2O, right? And so that's why when they're the same, when both of the concentrations are 1 times 10 to the negative 7th, 1 times 10 to the negative 7th, they're the same, you will have a neutral pH. The pH will be balanced. So here's how we calculate pH. So remember that pH is the power of hydrogen, or the potential of hydrogen, and that this measures the concentration of hydrogen ions. Sometimes this is either referred to as protons, because a hydrogen without an electron is simply just a proton. Sometimes we talk about proton donors as acids. So if you ever see that, that's why they're called that. All right. So the equation for to calculate pH is that pH equals the negative log. This is a button on your calculator, the log button. You'll have to add the negative in before. And then these brackets mean the concentration of hydrogen. So if we go back really quick and we look at this, these are the concentrations of hydrogen. So if you were trying to find the pH of this, you would put in negative log of 10 to the negative 4th power. And your calculator would spit out 4. Okay, so that's pH. That's how you find pH. To find pOH, so the concentration of hydroxide ions, right? This is the power of hydroxide, and it measures the concentration of hydroxide. Again, it's the same equation, except this time you're using the concentration of hydroxide, right? So it's the negative log of the hydroxide concentration. Also, here's a really quick trick before you go. So if you're just asked for pH and pOH and you're not given concentration, if the question asks something like, well, if the pH was 7, what would the pOH be? Well, the nice thing is they both, when you add them together, they equal 14. So you could solve this equation for, if you didn't have pOH and pH was 7, you could say, what plus 7 would give me 14? And we know that 7 plus 7 is 14, so that means pOH would be 7, right? Also, maybe what if pH was 3 and they asked for the pOH? Well, what plus 3 equals 14? Well, 11 plus 3 equals 14. So your pOH would be 11. So they are the counterpart of each other. They're kind of like flipped sides, right? If one side is 1, the other side is 13. All right, that's it for these notes. So good luck. Grab the worksheet. There's one worksheet for this, and get ready to take the quiz. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.